lifting holy hands to you, as I pledge my love anew. I worship you in spirit, I worship you in truth. Make my life a holy praise unto you. On bended knee we come, with a humble heart we come, bowing down before your holy throne, lifting holy hands to you, as we pledge our love anew. We worship you in spirit, we worship you in truth. Make our lives a holy praise unto you. Make our lives a holy praise unto you. Are you teaching again? Way up. Okey-dokey.
Well, good evening. We are at our last lesson on studying sin seriously. I don't know about you, even though we have studied this previously about 20 years ago, it is a very good study, and I'm very appreciative that we've been able to do this once again. Now, next week we begin a new study. We're going to be looking at some of the Psalms, but I propose that that study is going to be considerably different than what we're used to. It's going to be more informal. We will only be considering a few verses at a time, because remember, the Psalms are written to meditate upon. And I want us to get into that practice. We're going to be looking at Psalm 37. Next time we'll be reading it all the way through first. Then we'll be doing a little bit of an analysis of the psalm itself. And then we'll go through considering the thoughts that the psalmist presents for us to reflect upon. And I didn't bring them with me this evening, but just on the first 7 verses, I have pages of notes of things that just spring up in my mind that come out from the Psalms. The Psalms themselves are really of no value to us if we're just going to try to treat it as a reading schedule. Okay, today I'm going to read 4 or 5 Psalms, and I meet my goal. And the Psalms won't mean much to you until you go back and you read the same verses over and over again. And write down your thoughts. That's what I've been doing. And then look at the thoughts, and then look at how the psalmist put those thoughts together in the chapter. You're going to find that the Psalms are very hard to outline as far as the Psalms themselves, because there is a type of interrelation of the verses themselves that don't always follow an outline. That's all I'm going to say for now, and I hope that you'll plan to be with us. I hope to see a good number start coming for this, because the Psalms are the best way we have of protecting our mental health. I think that's the reason why they're written. We have so many perplexities in life that we just don't understand. Why does God allow this? Why does God allow that? Even this evening we're looking at, why is there hell? And why will some people be going there? And we like to be able to figure it out ourselves. And some people come to the conclusion, well, if God is all good and God is all merciful and kind, hell simply can't exist. And it's because we do not understand the economy that God created for the purpose of this world, to prepare us for eternity. And things get very difficult trying to understand the significance of hell. Anyway, this evening I suggest that we begin on page 123 of our books, and we're going to be looking at objections to hell. Now, some of these we have briefly covered already, and I want to go through this as quickly as we can without cheating ourselves on it, because we want to get to the questions at the end of the chapter. But people come up with objections why there can't be any such thing as hell, even though the Bible tells us there is a hell. And so they'll try to look at the verses and explain them away to say, well, there is no hell. And so let's look at some of these objections. The first one, and there are 4 in number that our author gives to us. Hell is inconsistent with the nature of God, reflecting upon and militating against his goodness, kindness, and mercy. And so they argue God is good, kind, and merciful, and that's true from Titus chapter 3. However, God is also just. And we discussed this, if you remember, several weeks ago, about a civil judge letting a rapist go free, where the rapist is not punished, even though proven to be guilty of it. And of course, when something like that happens, the first question that comes up with the victim and the victim's family is, where is justice? You know, it makes a difference between what is good and what is evil. And we don't want a judge to say, well, there's no difference between good and evil. Because we know that there's a difference between good and evil. And so, in fact, without justice, there is no mercy. Think about that for a moment. Why would you need mercy if there was no justice? You see, there would be no such thing. For mercy rejoiceth against judgment, James 2:13. We need to see both sides of the nature of God. We need to understand both characteristics and traits existent to God. And this is the reason why I say constantly, if we're going to study about the existence of God, that God exists, we need to also study his nature, his attributes. And you have some religious groups who actually claim to be Christian that give up on some of the attributes of God. And yes, we have some that even would say there is no such thing as hell. This does not come just from the skeptic of the Bible. It comes from those who claim to be Christian as well. Yes, brother.
Yeah, unfortunately, it nails I have a family member who doesn't like the idea and likes to believe in the idea of different levels of hell. And I think they're skewing what we talked about last week and weeks prior about the different levels of torment or the lashes. So I think they're skewing that into different levels. But it all goes back to it. I don't like it.
Yes.
That's a problem.
And if I don't like it, I don't have to accept it. And we talked about that too. I don't like it when the doctor tells me I have cancer. But simply because I don't like it doesn't deny the fact that I have cancer. And sometimes our physical health brings us back to reality. And so the author says, truly God, mercy and truth are met together. Righteousness and peace have kissed each other. That is actually what Psalm 85 and verse 10 says. It's a quotation from there. Furthermore, if the present operation of the immutable laws of God, its suffering takes place without such reflecting on the goodness of God. Now, you have to think about that for a moment before you understand what the author is saying here. If we're saying that hell is against the nature of God and cannot exist, so would be suffering. But the fact of the matter is, we experience suffering. That's what the author is saying to us. We may not like it. We might say suffering does not exist like hell doesn't exist. But we all know that it does exist and that there's no denying it. So the point with which we need to be impressed is the fact that if such a loving and compassionate Father will still thrust us into hell and the rebellious sinner, how heinous sin must really be. And what's the name of our study? Studying sin seriously. People don't study sin seriously. People laugh at sin. But sin is not a laughing matter. And hell helps us to realize that. The study of hell, the study of what we've been engaged in, should impress upon us the gravity of sin. You know, we don't think of sin being all that serious until we're the victims of sin, until somebody sins against us. Now we're angry. Now think about how God feels about sin. And can we ever, as finite human beings, appreciate how serious sin is to God? Yes,
she just reminded me of something. It's really a shame that we have this country as an example of sin and how it degrades, but gradually. How sin enters, because we were in Las Vegas in June for a conference I had to go to, and it was originally named, remember, Sin City.
yeah.
But when we were to think about, when we used to go back in the day, the things that happen generally in this country today are far worse than Las Vegas was known for in its heyday being called Sin City. The people from that era would blush at what happens in our country in general. So it's just seeing that progression of sin. Unfortunately, in this country, it's a perfect analogy for what can happen in our lives.
Yes, he was, Brother Bergstrom, for the benefit of those online, is talking about even what we used to consider Las Vegas to be Sin City many years ago. They would blush at what we are experiencing in our society today. You know, I've thought that way concerning pornography. It's gotten to the point that we don't think anything about it anymore. You know, when you talk about blushing. Let's look at point number 2. It says, the punishment of hell is disproportionate to the infraction of law or sin for which it is inflicted. And who's reasoning thusly? Who is to say how serious the infraction is? And so he asked a question. Who is making this assessment? Yeah, the sinner himself. Well, I don't deserve this. Does the rebellious child determine what chastisement the father will inflict? Are the lawbreakers the lawmakers? And then we start asking ourselves, What did sin cost Christ? You see? And so we have the soul that sins, it shall die. So who is to make that judgment? A fair and just decision as to the penalty that should be invoked against sin must be made by one entirely separated and removed from sin, one who can objectively see sin and what it is, does, and deserves. Who can determine that? Only God can determine that. That's right. And so the next part is, at times men will question, can it be possible that the sins committed in the limited time of a short life incur a punishment of unlimited time? And remember, we covered that too. If one finite person can judge another finite person and commit him to a finite period of punishment, such as a human judge judging another human being and committing them to prison, on what objection would we have by saying that an infinite God, perfect in all of his attributes, judging finite man and sending him away permanently for an infinite period of time? And remember, we started out with 1,000,000 years, 1,000 years, 100 years, 1 year, 1 day, 1 second. Where do you draw the line? And we have been involved in public debates concerning this. And so it comes down to the point that a person says, well, an all good and loving God cannot punish sin at all, because there's no place to break it off. Now we have human fathers who punish their own children being wicked people. It becomes an absurdity. So these are questions and positions that people actually take. And a lot of times it sounds good to people until they're challenged on it. And then they realize this just doesn't fly, you know. And so who are we to judge the consequences of any sin? God said, do not bear false witness, which means don't lie. Who can tell us the consequences of any lie that we tell? Lies lead to what? To more lies. You know, and so people get involved in asking or saying there are times that you should lie and sometimes you should not lie. At what time does God give us permission to lie? Never. That's what the commandment says. And so we say, well, I can justify myself in lying in this situation because it brings about the best possible consequences. Do you really know what the consequences of any of your actions are? Any of them that you do. Do you know? Can you tell us what the consequences are going to be? No person can tell you that. I didn't intend for that to happen, but that was the consequence. Well, I didn't foresee that. God says, don't lie. Then you don't have to worry about the consequences, do you? And so this just throws our world into moral chaos. You know, well, we can lie when we're out here in the world, but when you come to a court of law and the judge says you're not to lie, who is right? Who is he to say I can't lie on the stand? And if I lie under oath, because that's when it counts now. What's the consequences? What's it called? Perjury. And there's punishment that goes with that. Okay, the human judge can do that, but God can't do that. This is the type of chaos we find ourselves in. We create for ourselves. You see, we just don't appreciate what's at stake. We don't understand the seriousness of this life. What's the purpose of life? To have good time? To live and to die and be forgotten forever? That it makes no difference whether we lived or died? You think that's the kind of God that we have? That He created you? You have life, but that life does not matter, and the life that we live in this life does not matter. People don't think very deeply even about their own lives. Does it make any difference whether I do right or wrong? You see, if God cannot judge evil and condemn those who do wrong, then it doesn't matter how we live our lives. It doesn't matter whether a person is kind to you or he tries to kill you. What's the difference? You see, that's the world of the heathen. But even sometimes the heathen realizes that he has the responsibility to do, for some reason or the other, to do what he perceives to be right and avoid doing what he perceives to be wrong. But if there's no difference between right and wrong, then there's no reason for us to even have a conscience. To tell us that we should do what is right, what we at least believe to be right. Sometimes a conscience does not tell us what's right. You know, people say, well, let your conscience be your guide. People can do bad things, wrong things, with a good conscience. But when we're talking about moral law and we're responsible to moral law, it means that we somehow, some way, feel obligated to do what's right and avoid doing what's wrong. Not only do I expect that of myself, but I expect it of you. And I expect it of you. And when we say you ought not to have done that, I don't have to explain that to you. You know what that means. But notice as we get farther and farther away from God, particularly said the Ten Commandments, which is the moral law that this country was built upon, the more injustice we see. People actually calling for some of our elected government officials to be killed because I don't like them. I don't like them any more than I like hell. See, if I don't like it, I can do away with it. I can do away with hell. I can do away with you. And it's sad that we're coming to that in our country. Well, hell. Number 3, hell reflects on the omniscience and wisdom of God, since it involves His whole creation in an awful failure. Well, His whole creation has not been an awful failure. I hope we don't consider ourselves to be a failure, those who are saved and have the hope of heaven. You know, do we really appreciate all that's at stake here? People don't take life seriously. Number 4, if I got to heaven and my loved ones were not there, but rather were experiencing horrors of hell, I would not be happy. Heaven would become hell. Well, we've already touched upon this. And when we looked at the story of the rich man and Lazarus, the rich man could see where Lazarus was, but do we have any information that Lazarus was even aware of the rich man? He wasn't even allowed to contact Lazarus, was he? Yes, Brother Bergstrom.
And that's why I love that the loving mercy of God, of the righteous, juxtaposed to the guilty, because those who make it to heaven will not remember
Yeah.
those. Because I think about Noah, and when God shut those doors of the ark, what a merciful thing that God shut the doors and didn't ask Noah to shut the doors.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about Noah hearing and thinking about all those people who were lost, how devastating.
And yes, God shut the doors of the ark, and he shut Noah and his family in for protection.
Yes, just like we will be protected afar off.
Yep. So, and of course, there are no family relationships as we know them here. I do think that in heaven we do know one another. That is of the saved, but not of the unsaved, the condemned. Okay, it's the bottom of the hour, and I promise we get through our questions tonight. I hope we've dealt with this fairly, with the objections. We're certainly limited on time. Let's look at our first true false. Lazarus wanted to drink in the other world. Why is that false? It was the rich man that wanted to drink in the other world. And you can all speak up. I want to hear the answers from you. Number 2, in hell, men lose all memory of this life. False. How do we know that to be false? Yeah. Now, you remember when you were on earth, don't you? Yeah, I also remember I have 5 brothers down there too. So he's quite aware of this life that he lived on earth. And number 3, it is altogether possible that the rich man was responsible for his brethren being in danger of going to hell. True. Why would that be true? By his actions, by his influence, right? Could it be that we would someday be responsible for our own children to be in hell? How could that be? Not teaching them, not presenting to them a right example for them to imitate. Now, that doesn't make us necessarily responsible for them being lost, because every person has the responsibility of deciding for himself. And I have to remember that even with my own family members. I make that they make that decision. I don't make that decision for them. You know, if a person really does not seek after God, what can you do? How can you make a person seek God? I think about Acts chapter 17, where Paul spoke in Athens. You know, that men ought to seek after God. That's the first responsibility. And when they're seeking after God and they hear the gospel, sometimes we put the gospel out first. But the gospel is for those who seek after God. If a person indicates to me they're not seeking after God, I'm not going to waste my time with them. I'm not going to try to make them feel guilty and say, well, you ought to be seeking after God. Because the person has that's his responsibility. Here, number 4. What did you do with this one? Though Satan hears the sinner now, he will not hear him in the realm of the condemned. If God hears the sinner now, he will not hear him in the realm. What's that?
You said Satan instead of God.
I said Satan?
Yeah, I find it
Really? Whew. That's really bad. Though God hears the sinner now, he will not hear him in the realm of the condemned. He doesn't hear the sinner now. That's sort of a trick question, isn't it? The answer is false. He doesn't hear him now. Why doesn't he hear him now? Why does he not hear the sinner now? That's what separates us from God. And he's not listening to God. You don't listen to me, I don't listen to you. Okay, number 5. Samuel is an illustration of the desperation of a man who called upon God, but God would not hear. Why is that false? It was King Saul, wasn't it? It wasn't Samuel. Okay. Fill in the blanks. What's the passage we've been studying? Luke 16:19 through 31. The rich man and Lazarus is a passage giving the account of the rich man and Lazarus, and through it discusses although it discusses the immediate state of the lost, which is Tartarus. Tartarus. T-A-R. Tartarus. 2 Peter 2, verse 4, it furnishes us with a graphic description of the eternal state of the lost, Gehenna. That's right, Matthew 10 and verse 28. Number 2, God has often used fire for divine retribution, Leviticus 10:2. Nadab and Abihu. Yes, Genesis what? 19:24. Hell is pictured as a furnace of fire. Matthew 13:42 through 50. As a lake of fire in Revelation verses 9 and 10, verse 14, verse 15, and Revelation 21 and verse 8. And we talked about how fire is being used here. And as a place of flaming fire, 2 Thessalonians 1, 7 through 9. The fire of hell is said to be everlasting. Matthew 18:8 and 9. Matthew 25, 41 and 46. Parable of the talents, and Jude 7. It's I gave you the beginning, unquenchable. Mark 9:13 and 48. Is it 43? Did I miss 43 and 40? That sounds more like it. Let me change my notes. 43 and 48. And polluted with brimstone. Revelation 21 and verse 8. This one we didn't spend much time on. It was kind of confusing in the discussion, but we got the basic idea anyway. The Greek words for eternal and everlasting are aion and ainois. They are applied to future punishment in 2 Peter 2:17. That's right, Jude 13 and Revelation 14:11, Revelation 19:3, and Revelation 20 and verse 10. That's right. We also have Matthew 18:8. Yes. Matthew. Yes, 25, 41, and 46. We've covered that one just previously. Mark 3:29. Yeah, 2 Thessalonians 1:9. It's kind of hard to read. They don't give you much room, do they? Also Hebrews 6:2 and yes, Jude verse 6. Ainoios is applied to God in Romans. Yes, that's right, Romans 16:26. Did I leave something out?
Yeah, after Hebrews 6:2 and Jude 6.
How's that read?
Oh, that
Ionius.
Greek term
Yes, it's a Greek word there.
is applied to the happiness of the blessed.
Is applied to God, Romans 16:26,
Line before that.
and to the Holy Spirit.
That was in the line before that.
I gotta go back and look at that. Missing a line? I could be I retyped this. Okay, number 4.
It says Jude 6. What does it mean? From the whole chapter, the 6th chapter?
No,
It only has one chapter in Jude. That's why I said Jude verse 6.
that is implied in the
It's a one chapter book.
but that's according to that, that's implied in the happiness of the blessed. You have that in your notes.
No. The gulf of Luke 16:26 is described as being great, fixed, and unbridgeable. There is a hell. The scriptures teach it. Heaven suggests it. Redemption implies it, and judgment demands it. Okay, wow. Locate. Knowing therefore the terror of the Lord, we persuade men. Right. Verse 10, by the way, says we must all stand before the judgment seat of Christ. So this one is 2 Corinthians 5:11. The secret things belong unto the Lord. Deuteronomy 29:29 is right. So are my ways higher than your ways. Isaiah 55 and verse 9. In the presence of the holy angels and the presence of the Lamb, Revelation 14:10, and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved unto judgment. 2 Peter 2 and verse 4. Who are delivered into the chains of darkness? The angels, the bad ones. Ones fell. Answer in few words. Wow. Yes, how can we prove that hell is real? I won't give you the scriptures, but it is a place. It's as real as heaven is real. Otherwise, Jesus used deception. This you'll find on the bottom of page 119. You want to make a note of that and fill it in later on. Make a list of those who will populate hell using Revelation 21:8, Revelation 22:15, Galatians 5 verses 19 through 21, 1 Corinthians 6, 9 through 11, and Matthew 25:41. Who's there? Okay, cowardly are there? Unbelievers? Idolaters? Murderers? Sorcerers? Thieves? Liars? We covered that already, right? We got sodomites and prostitutes, don't we? Gamblers. Blasphemers. You know, I don't know if it says gamblers there, but what is gambling? It's misappropriation. That's true. It's thievery by permission, isn't it? Isn't that what it is? We got blasphemers, idolaters that was mentioned, extortioners. Drunkards? Haters of God? Braggarts? You need more room.
That's who I am now.
I know you do. Aren't you glad you don't have to list every sin? Okay. Number 3, why and where is hell spoken of as the second death? Such obtaining, how is hell spoken of and from what consequent factors? Where is it? Where is it spoken of as the second death? Yes, it's in Revelation 21:8, Revelation 20, verse 6 and 14. Thank you. The first death is separation of what? Body and spirit. The second death is eternal separation from God. Consequences, eternal separation from God. Number 4, what are some simple, good, and convincing answers to the following objections to hell? Oh, wow. Hell is inconsistent with the nature or goodness, kindness of God. Well, we talk about balancing God's goodness with his justice, right? If there's no hell, then God is not good and shows no mercy. Number 2, the lawmaker does not what? Determine his own punishment. You know, we don't usually think of it that way. I'll tell you, have you ever had what you would really consider good kids, or really good and sensitive child, and the child does wrong, and maybe this is something that you had not anticipated? Have you ever asked that child, what do you think is the appropriate punishment for what you did? Yes, I found that. Yeah, it'd be worse than what you would imagine. And of course, we don't usually allow them to determine their own punishment. But really, they need to know what the consequence is going to be beforehand, don't they? Oh my, we are really getting away from here. The punishment of hell is disproportionate to the infraction of law for which it's inflicted. He says, who says that? Hell reflects on the wisdom and omniscience of God, since it involves the whole creation in failure. Well, that's false. The whole creation did not fail. If I got to heaven, my loved ones were not there, but rather were experiencing hell, I would not be happy. You're not going to even be aware of them. Those things are forgotten. What 5 things was the rich man capable of doing, all of which indicate consciousness? Well, he could feel, he could thirst. Yeah, feel, experience pain. Yeah, he could experience pain. What else? Yes, he could remember. He could reason. He could experience regret. He's trying to pray, but nobody's listening. He pled for mercy. And finally, as was mentioned, pain, tormented forever. There's more that we could say here. We got to get through with this because we're already a little bit past time. Multiple choice, and this will be the last book that we'll do. Hell is described as being worse than death. Without mercy. Where is that? Hebrews 10, 28 and 29. Okay. In where? Number 2. Yes, Matthew 25, 41, we are told that hell was prepared for the devil and his angels. Hell is a real place, a state of mind, or an imaginative evil. It's a real place. God is all mercy, all justice, just and merciful. According to, yeah, only trouble is Revelation 11:22 doesn't say that. That's a misprint. I think what you want is Romans 11:22. That's, yeah, I think it's correct in the text. If you go back about 2/3 the way down on page 123, you'll find that it is Romans 11:22. But it came up in our book as Revelation 11:22. After death comes purgatory, a second chance, annihilation? No, the judgment, according to appointed once for man once to die. The word there is hapax, not to be repeated, once for all. And what is compared with that word is the fact that Christ died once for all. Okay, well, thank you very much. We are 5 minutes past our time here. And do we have the prayer book? And I've been assigned for it tonight. Let's go ahead and turn off the YouTube then. So we can address these prayer requests.